Hello, and welcome to People Keep Dying, the podcast where we talk about how people keep dying. I'm your host, Stephanie.
And I'm Angela.
And today is, I guess, well, for people in America, it's Thanksgiving.
Or day before, or I guess, like, yeah,
it's Thanksgiving.
This will get released on Thanksgiving.
Because it's Wednesday when we're recording, and it should be
out tomorrow
at some point. It should hopefully be edited and put out
If
tomorrow.
not, it'll be Black Friday,
yeah.
So it'll be close enough. You'll be very full with turkey regardless.
Yes. You can throw us on, listen to some wonderful murdery stories. Well, stories where people die. I shouldn't make presumptions that everyone was murdered. And enjoy your shopping. I hope everybody stays safe this holiday.
Just shop online.
Yeah, shop online.
They don't even know. You're supposed to shop
Who
local.
goes into the stores? And then people who go to the stores, like, why are you trampling over someone? Is that $20 microwave really?
For some people, it's like I feel like it's the rush, you know.
Yeah, I don't
like
ever
the adrenaline gets going, and they're like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna save so much money," and then they kill people.
I'll cut a bitch to save 5 cents off this shoe. Okay, so today I was gonna tell you a story about White Friday. And because it's going to be Black Friday, but couldn't get enough information on that, so we scrapped it. And
even though like our third episode was definitely just random stories we pieced together,
this one was like it was too short. It was like when I finally did some research on it, I realized that the 4 paragraphs that I had read previously was all there was to know. And I thought I could flesh out the story a little bit more, but then I felt like I was just talking more about World War I because White Friday happened on World War I, which, a fun fact, I don't know why I'm still talking about this. I'm going to cut all this out. White Friday didn't even happen on a Friday. It happened on a Wednesday.
So why is it called White Friday?
It's just what people started calling it.
It's fucking weird.
And it was back in the 1920s, so it's pre-Black Friday. So it's like...
whatever.
I don't know why they called it White Friday. So it was all weird, didn't make sense. Not cool people. I mean, people died. A lot of people died. But I didn't like that story, so we're going to do a new one. New story. So we're going to talk about the Booher Family Murders. Have you ever heard of this?
I think I've seen this. I think I actually have this on my list of things I was going to talk about. But I didn't read into it.
Okay, because I also was like, I wonder if Angela has ever or wanted to cover this or wants to look at it. But I did it first, bitch. So ha ha ha. Okay, so the Booher family, we're just going to get right into it. I'm not
do it. Go in.
Not even going to let you rebuttal. Okay, so the Booher family moved from Oklahoma to Alberta in 1906.
Oh, it's a Canadian murder.
It is a Canadian murder. They were lured in by the prospect of good, cheap farmland because that's all there is in Alberta. It's just prairie lands and farms.
And oil.
And oil. The Booher family wasn't so much into the oil. They just sort of wanted to have their own little farmland.
Can you farm a lot in the wintertime?
I'm not sure. Maybe they do other things during that time.
I don't know.
The 20s.
They house the ducks, but go on.
Yeah. So the family moved around the province for a while before they finally settled down in Manville, Alberta in 1924. The family was relatively well off. They had a good deal of money due to their successes. So the family consisted of Henry, who is the father, and Eunice, the mother. And then they had 4 children who were Fred, Vernon, Dorothy, and Algertha.
I think I know the story. As you're saying it, and I'm like, oh, man.
Because the names are so... Okay, because Algertha is a name that you remember.
Yeah.
That is not a name
go on.
that you just forget about. So, on the morning of July 9th in 1928... Henry, who was 54 years old at the time, got up and left home early. He had just bought a new piece of land about 10 kilometers away, and he was over there building a new shelter, and he was expected to be gone for about a week. So he kissed his family goodbye, and off he goes. The family carried on with their chores for the day, and around 6 o'clock that evening, the 2 daughters, Dorothy and Algertha, saddled up their horses to ride into town for basketball practice. This
They
is
had
how
basketball?
First of all, I was like, they rode their horses into town. This is so the 1920s. So Yeah, the girls go, they head off in the school for basketball practice. And while they were riding off, they see their mother, Eunice, walking into the house from the strawberry patch with a barrel of fruit. And they also saw their brother, Vernon, their older brother, Vernon, standing by the gate of the pasture, and he was chasing off one of the colts that had gotten loose. And off the girls go. So shortly after, a city worker by the name of Will Scott had stopped by the house to deliver a tax notice, and he spoke with Vernon in the front yard for a while about the family's tax bill, and then he left. After Will left, Vernon went out into the field to wrangle out some cows when he heard 5 to 6 shotguns. However, because it's 20s and it was out in the country, hearing guns really wasn't anything like out of the ordinary. So Vernon reportedly didn't think anything of it and just continued to fiddle around and bring in the cows. In fact, it was so unusual that even the neighbors, the Ross family, also heard the shots, but they didn't do anything about it. They reported that the first shots happened around 6:40, and then 2 more shots between 8 and 8:30. Like Vernon, they didn't think anything of it. They didn't report it. A couple other neighbors also heard different shots. So there was a neighbor that only heard 1 shot. There was a neighbor that heard 3 shots. So it was all really conflicting, and they all gave different times. But yeah, the neighbors, the Ross family didn't think anything of it until Vernon came barging through their front door at 9 p.m. screaming that someone had shot his mother and his brother Fred. Doo-doo-doo. Elsewhere, just after 9, Dorothy and Algertha get home from basketball practice, and as they step into the house, Dorothy sees her brother Fred laying on his back with his right arm sort of covering up his face, leaning against the wall. So it's sort of like a situation like this. And thinking that he had just fallen and hurt himself, Dorothy ran over to his side, but when she moved his arm, she saw that there was a huge gunshot wound in the middle of his face. Horrified, the girls look around the room, and they also see their mother is laying silently and motionless at the kitchen table. The girls very quietly walk into the kitchen with their backs against the walls, which I thought was really smart of them, just in case someone's still in the house. Realize that their mother has also been shot and is dead, and they then run out of the house. To the neighbors, the poor Ross family. They start running towards the Ross family. Once they are running over there, they happen to see Vernon, who's walking back to the house. They tell Vernon, someone shot mom and dad. He says that he already knows. They've already called the police, and the 3 head back to the house. While those 3, the neighbor Ross, he ends up calling a doctor in, and he also calls someone to go get the dad because the dad's gone and a bunch of his family's been shot. So they go get the dad. So when the police arrive, they find the body of Eunice Booher. She was shot in the back of the head while sitting at the dining table, and she was leaned over into the bowl of fresh picked strawberries. The bowl was broken. They also found her son Fred, who was lying on the floor of the kitchen, and he was shot 3 times in the face. When they do a further inspection of the house, they find 1 other body in the barn, and then afterwards, Vernon also tells them that there's a 4th body in this like bunkhouse or whatever that they had built, and so for a total of 4 dead people. When the police questioned Vernon if he knew anything about what happened or who would have wanted to hurt his family, he states that 2 Hungarian men had showed up the day before and argued with his brother Fred about something before leaving. But other than that, there wasn't any, they were a loving family, were really good pillars in the community, didn't really have any enemies, couldn't really think of anything. And this was all backed up by the father, Henry, who also stated he had 2 Hungarian men did come by. There was a kerfuffle with Fred. But they didn't really think anything of it. Like, They didn't think that the father didn't think that these men would come back and hurt his family. The police also didn't believe that it was an intruder or a stranger because nothing was stolen. The home was not broken into. There wasn't any like other signs of like a kerfluffle.
Yeah.
It was just like if someone was coming in to rob them, they would have robbed something instead of just, murder style killing the wife and the son. So, after they do some tests, it's confirmed that the mother and son were shot within moments of each other, and that the two men were shot separately at later times later on in the evening. But everyone was shot with the same weapon, which was a .303 Lee Einfeld rifle. Now it's .303 or .303, so I don't know guns.
I don't know anything about guns.
It's a .303 rifle, which oddly enough was the same gun that had been reportedly stolen from a neighbor's farm, Charles Stevenson, just a few days before. So they bring Charles into questioning. They ask him a bunch of stuff, and they're just like, well, the gun was hidden. No one outside of our family would have known about it other than Fred and Vernon Booher. So the police start getting a little suspicious of Vernon, and they start doing a little bit of investigative work and discover that Vernon and Fred had actually been fighting over the last few months, and that Vernon was also very angry at his mother for apparently forcing him to end a relationship that he had with this girl, which, I mean, siblings fight.
Yeah, that's normal.
Like, it's the 20s, and, maybe I don't know too much about the girl or the story with that, but I mean, to me, they were like, this doesn't really seem like a good enough reason for murder, but when murders happen, I mean, anything can be like a reason.
Be a trigger to whoever is murdering.
So, but that's their reasoning, is just, there's been a little bit of conflict in the family less recently. And so the police finally locate the two Hungarians that had been arguing with Fred, which, how did they find them? I don't know, but
maybe
they did.
there weren't a lot of Hungarians there in town. They're like, there's these two Hungarian guys.
These two travelers are over here. So they bring them in, and they have airtight alibis. So the police release them, and Vernon is now the prime suspect number one, because Fred's dead, and he's the only one that knew where the gun was. So despite not having a murder weapon or any proof other than the conflicting eyewitness accounts and town rumors and gossip, the police arrest Vernon for the 4 murders because, hey, it's the 20s and they can do stuff like that.
That sounds really messed up.
Apparently, they could just arrest you, and then they'd hold you, and then you'd have the hearing to see if you would be charged.
Oh my gosh.
So it's not so that's sort of what was happening here. I don't really know what the actual, it's the 20s, so the laws were so different back then. But anyways, they brought him in for questioning, and when they brought him in for questioning, they were just like, well, we're going to charge, we're holding you.
Yeah. But then you look guilty then if you're getting held for that long too.
Well, yes. And also because he wasn't talking, he wasn't upset that anybody, he wasn't grieving the way that
people
expected.
Think they should, yeah.
Which, I mean, everyone grieves in their own ways, but the husband was devastated. Henry was devastated. The daughters were devastated, and Brendan was like, all right, well, I guess I gotta go wrangle some more cows. He wasn't all upset, so the police were super bothered by that. And despite being a very rich family who definitely could afford a lawyer, Vernon decides to represent himself in the preliminary hearing.
Maybe his dad was like, I think you did it. And was like, you're not going to.
No, the dad was like, he didn't do it.
Then why didn't he pay for a lawyer?
His family was very supportive and believed that he had nothing.
And that's why they didn't think he needed a lawyer?
I don't know. Vernon was just like, no, I'm good.
All right.
And the judge was all like, hey, just so you know, this is just a preliminary hearing and to see if you're going to be charged, but anything you say will be able to be used against you later on. Are you sure you want to go through with this? And he's like, yeah. And I don't know if it's a cockiness, because I couldn't really find that much information about who he was as a person.
Or maybe he just had so much, a lot of people talk about how they have so much trust because they know they didn't do it, so they think Like they don't
Maybe it was
need.
because like, well, they don't have the murder weapon.
Yeah.
So if they don't have the murder weapon, I mean,
But they also just jailed him for
well,
speculation.
yes, that's
So-
true. So they have the preliminary hearing, and the police come in, and they state so that their story, their version of events, is that after the sisters left for town at 6 o'clock, Vernon entered a house and shot his mother from behind, which one of the sisters, I believe it was Dorothy, had said that when she left at 6 o'clock, she had heard a gunshot just as they were leaving
Oh.
just as they were leaving town.
I guess it's like farm life, so they just don't.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they're out in the middle of nowhere, so hearing guns go
It's
off
not a big
is
deal.
not a
Yeah.
big deal. Not something that you necessarily think about, or
Yeah.
it just happens. Which I'm just like,
Hunting, I guess, right? It's hunting
yeah,
season. So
and
you
it's the
don't-
20s as
Yeah.
well. So the sister had heard a shot at about 6 p.m. Moments later, the police speculate that Fred then came into the kitchen, where Vernon then shot him twice in the face, and then after he fell to the ground, Vernon shot him one more time right in the middle of the face. So he got hit in the forehead, right below his hat. He got hit in the neck, and then shot right in the middle of the face.
Jesus. Just in
Which,
case.
like, that's like some rage. That's a rage killing.
Yeah.
Like if he killed his mom, it was one bullet to the back of the head, and he probably just walked up and killed her. And then they basically speculate the brother then came in and he shot the brother. But it
Yeah.
sounded like he shot the brother. Like the brother was an angry thing,
Or maybe
not,
like he was able to get the gun right where he needed to for his mom, but then with his brother, it was just like he's
Yeah.
moving, so maybe a moving target was too much.
maybe.
Yeah.
The police believe that the mother and son were killed before Will Scott, who was the tax guy, even showed up.
Oh.
And so that's why Will spoke with Vernon and not Fred, because Fred was technically the older brother, and they thought that it was suspicious that they would have dealt with the tax bill and all of that stuff with Vernon instead of Fred. So the police think that they had already been shot and killed before the guy even showed up, and that's also why he didn't invite him into the house. Then Vernon went into the barn and shot Bill Rozak at 7:45. Then he shot and killed Gabriel, which was one of the other gentlemen, between 8 and 8:30 in the bunkhouse.
What reason would he have to kill them?
The police were just saying that it was basically just a cover up.
To make it
Because
seem like
they were workers on the farm, and we'll see. Like for me, when I was reading through, it was like whoever killed the mom and dad, maybe they killed the other two because they like witnessed or they saw something. But when the police had reported that like they were shot so far apart, it was like, well,
They wouldn't have
that's a
known
little
it was
weird.
him. They wouldn't have even ever heard
Yeah.
gunshots and been like, whatever.
Yeah. So there was blah, 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 blah. So he killed Gabriel between 8 and 8:30 in the bunkhouse, and then disposed the weapon, and then ran to the neighbor's house to inform them of his apparent discovery of his dead parents, because Vernon had said that he was out wrangling up that cattle the whole time.
Yeah.
He'd come home. Police also said that Vernon had stolen the gun that was used in the murders, with the eyewitnesses, which included his sister, stating that they saw Vernon riding a horse back from the Stevenson farm on the Sunday morning prior to the murders, which was the same day that the gun was reported stolen. So the police are like, this is where he had gotten the weapon. We have an eyewitness saying that he was there. It's him. And the judge was like, while the evidence is like largely circumstantial and contains several discrepancies, there's still a little bit of suspicion on you that maybe you may have killed him. So you're gonna have to stay on trial.
Yeah.
And he then said, "quote I can only hope that you may be able to prove yourself innocent." And so now they have the trial, but the police need to find evidence. They need to find that gun because, like, even though it's not in the 1920s, like you still need to have a murder weapon to be able to prove that it was Vernon. And so the head investigator, Inspector Hancock, does something very new and very strange for the time. And he calls in Mr. Maximilian Langsner, who is a Vienna-born mind reader.
Oh my God.
So, in the 1920s, the science of psychic phenomena was like starting to become all the rage.
This
And
is,
it was becoming
oh my
super popular in
gosh.
Canada and the United States and in Britain. And people would basically claim to be mediums or mentalists or spiritualists and would draw in huge crowds of audience astounded by the powers that they possessed. And so they're like, hey, you know what? We really need to find out where this rifle is. Let's bring in this famous guy. And before you go thinking that Mr. Langsner was a hack, he really isn't. Dude knew his shit. He was very well versed. He had a pretty illustrious career. He studied psychology with Freud in Vienna. He went to India and he studied the ways of the yogi and mind control.
I'm pretty sure he was very perceptive. It was good
Yes,
detective skills.
yes.
He wasn't a mind reader.
Well, let me finish my story
Okay.
because I'm a believer. It's just because it's a little weird. So he believed that the human mind, that when under stress, produces signals that another trained mind can learn how to pick up. So he's just like, I can feel his emotions. He'll be able to send me his brain waves, but I have to get him into a stress position, and then he'll share his shit with me. He had even solved some crimes in Europe prior to making his way over, which is why he got put in some tabloids, and that Inspector Hancock eventually read and was like, hey, let's bring him in. So they bring him in, and they sent Mr. Langsner sat there during like the original or the preliminary trial to see if he was going to get charged. He's like, he did it. Like, for sure. However, I'm going to need to sit down with him like one-on-one because I was feeling a lot of other people's energy and a lot of other people's emotions, and I need like to just get his. I need to feel just his brainwaves. And so they're like, all right, yeah, sure. So they bring him down to the basement that he's being kept in at the jail because they didn't want him around because he was being charged with murder, and it was such a small town. They didn't want him being kept with other people. There's a lot of drunks and stuff up there. So they kept him in the basement that was normally used for women, which is very upsetting when you think about it.
Maybe it's because women never get
Well, why are the women in the basement?
to keep out of sight.
Yeah, but it's just
You'll
there's this whole
you'll
like
cause a riot.
Made me really uncomfortable when I found out that the women cells were being kept
That
in
way
the
they can
creepy
do whatever
basement.
they wanted
Yep.
and no one can see it.
Yeah,
This was a time when we
was a time when we did that. They still do that now.
I'm just saying we had less rights back then than we do now. Let's say that. Yeah. Less rights.
So they sit him down. They sit Mr. Langsner down in the basement with Vernon, and after 10 minutes of no speaking, Langsner walks out of the room and then looks at Hancock and says, "The rifle is unimportant. He did it, and he admitted it to me." And Hancock was like, "You didn't even fucking say anything."
Yeah.
And he didn't even fucking say anything. So we need the rifle.
Yeah.
Like, I realize what you're saying is that he did it, but that's not gonna hold up in a court of law. So you're gonna need to find us this rifle. And the guy's like, all right, fine. You have little faith, but if you need the rifle, I'll get you the rifle. Just let me back in there. And so they do. And Hancock sits down in front of Vernon again for 5 hours without speaking. And Vernon, for the most part, also stayed really quiet, but then sometimes he'd start yelling at him, being like, why won't you talk to me? Why won't you talk to me? Like, have they found the murder weapon yet? Blah, blah, blah. Like, and then after 5 hours, Langsner got up and walked out, and then he drew a sketch of the farmhouse with a bunch of bushes and trees, then pointed at some of the bushes and said, your rifle is right there. And he handed the piece of paper to the detective, and the sketch was of the farmhouse. And so the police are like, all right, let's go. So they go to the farmhouse. They go over to where the trees were, and they find the 303 Einfeld rifle buried under some soft sod on the farm.
I was gonna say, like, if it's just in the bushes and the police didn't find it, I'd be very disappointed.
No, they found
Okay.
it. They found the gun. Vernon was then brought to the scene and confronted with the rifle, and he immediately broke down and confessed in front of his sisters and his father that he had killed his mom and his brother. He said that he had only meant to kill his mother, And
By his mother.
never
Because
said.
of the girl, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably from ending the relationship.
Yeah.
But when Fred rushed into the house, he knew that he would have to kill him too. Vernon apologized. Vernon only apologized for killing Fred, not the mother. So clearly, it was just like,
Yeah.
he was pissed at her for whatever reason, ending that relationship. And he said that he killed the other two workers merely as part of a cover-up. Didn't really,
Which is dumb.
yeah. Vernon was convicted, obviously, on all 4 murders, and he was hanged to death on April 26, 1929. And that is
The Booher.
the Booher Family Murders. So yeah, that was my story.
Oh.
I did a murder this time, and it was
of this
of within the last 100
century.
years.
Yeah, of the last century. Like 90, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's really, I like that story. It was good. I did not know about this one. So I was thinking about totally different murders.
No,
There's so many murders on farmhouses and isolated areas, which is why I'm so scared of them.
Yes, for sure. No, there really is.
Don't live by
There really
yourself.
is. No, don't.
All right. So for my story, I'm going to do, this is very, very recent.
Ooh.
In 2012.
Ooh,
So that's
geez.
really recent. I'm doing a Thanksgiving murder because this is Thanksgiving.
Oh, did someone die in the mall?
No, because that's basically like, and then they get trampled and then they die. So it's not really like a story
Yeah.
to it. This one has a lot of things.
Ooh,
A lot.
I like things.
I mean, it's not very long, but it's a lot of things. So, Byron David Smith, born June 11th, 1948, was a 64-year-old retiree. He lived in Little Falls, Minnesota, where in the year of 2012, he had been burglarized at least half a dozen times.
Why? Is he rich?
He just had like a lot of stuff, and I think because
Oh.
like he was older, I think he was targeted more often.
Okay.
So
he had a lot of things and other
Yeah.
people wanted his things.
among
That's
the items
weird.
stolen were irreplaceable items such as a watch his father received for being a prisoner of war during World War II,
What?
and medals and ribbons Byron earned in the Air Force during the Vietnam War.
Well, who steals stuff like that? Can you sell them?
assholes. I think you can.
I
Or some
mean-
people are just assholes, right? And a watch you can definitely.
Yeah, the watch you can sell, but I mean, for being a prisoner of war, though, you would think that it would clearly have to be engraved,
There are some people.
and so it's like, where are you gonna hawk that shit? Like, what
Well,
are you
this was on
doing?
top of thousands of dollars and jewelry
Yeah.
already stolen from
That's
him.
crazy.
So at this point, as a precaution, Byron set up a security system at his home. So this is when everything's gonna go down and go
Oh my gosh.
a little crazier than you expect it to go too.
Okay.
So on November 22nd, 2012, Thanksgiving Day, cousins Haley Kiefer and Nicholas Brady broke in to Byron's home. She was 18 and he was 17. So they're snotty, awful teenagers.
Are they drug addicts?
Yes.
Okay.
Surveillance cameras caught the cousins casing the home before the robbery.
Now, were they breaking into the house prior to?
Yes,
Or
there was
this-
speculation
Okay.
that they had actually been, they were among the half dozen times that he was burglarized.
Even though they're
before.
still casing the house?
I think they cased the house afterwards too, just to kind of see like,
Yeah.
oh, is he home
Okay.
or whatever. So Byron said that he shot Nicholas at the top of the basement stairs. So as like, because
Holy shit.
so like
That
what was
went
happening.
that went in a completely
Yeah.
different way. Okay.
So this is I'm gonna build you what happened,
Okay.
and it's kind of crazy. So Nicholas was shot twice before he fell down to the bottom of the stairs, where he was then shot in the face by Byron.
Oh my god, this sounds like Vernon.
Minutes later, Haley, I think it was about 10 minutes, Haley enters the basement, and Byron shot her at the top of the stairs. Haley also fell down the stairs after Byron's rifle jammed, he shot her multiple times in the chest with his .22 caliber revolver. It didn't seem like she was dead yet, so Byron dragged Haley's body and set her beside Nicholas's dead body, where he shot her fatally in the chin. I feel like this might be an overreaction to someone stealing your shit.
Oh my gosh, I have so many questions. Okay, so they broke in through the basement?
No, they broke into the front of the house, but Byron, it turns out, was waiting in the bottom of the basement because he had seen them casing his
Okay,
place.
so he was watching his camera and saw that they were gonna
They're gonna break in.
They were gonna break in.
So he waited in the bottom of the basement to kill them.
Oh my gosh. Okay, this is insane.
So at the Byron would later say that he was afraid that they may be armed.
I mean, it's
Possible.
It's possible.
Yeah.
How old is he?
He is 64 years old.
Okay. I mean, okay.
Okay.
How he had been home previously during break-ins?
No, they didn't
Okay.
say if he was or not,
Okay.
but I don't think he was.
Okay.
The events were recorded by Byron's security system, which he did have during that time. Out of respect to the police, because they were celebrating Thanksgiving, he didn't report deaths until the next day.
Oh, go fuck yourself. What about the families of that?
No, the police.
Out of respect for the
Yeah.
police.
So
Wow.
Nicholas doesn't really seem like he had a very good relationship with his own family because he actually had an open case from August 29th because he had stolen drugs from his sister. So these aren't I'm not saying these are perfect kids or anything.
No,
I'm not saying
but-
they should be murdered, but I'm not saying
No.
that they were
They
perfect kids.
probably needed to get arrested
Yeah.
for the burglary. They didn't need to get shot multiple times.
The car Nicholas and Haley used were linked to a burglary the previous night of a retired teacher. So they have been going around,
Okay.
breaking into people's houses. Byron said that Haley let out a short laugh after she fell down the stairs. So he said to himself, if you're going to try to shoot somebody and they laugh at you, you go again.
No.
But the audio recording only caught Haley saying, "Oh my God."
So
He's saying that she laughed at him, and that's why he shot her again. When the video, the audio recording and the surveillance, around his house shows that she's just freaking out.
wow.
So Byron would later admit that he may have used some excessive force.
May have.
Maybe.
Maybe when you shot her after she fell down, that may have been a little bit much.
And then
maybe
when she was still alive, and then, if your gun jams and you grab another gun to shoot them,
yeah. Now you're just now you're rage killing.
yeah.
Now the adrenaline's pumping, or maybe he's like, well, shit, what am I gonna do now? I have two bodies. Well, you can't
You can't call
who
cops
the
tomorrow.
fuck knows?
It's Thanksgiving.
Wow.
Minnesota has castle law, which is a homeowners are allowed to protect themselves kind of law.
Yeah.
So it was speculated the first shots may have been justified under those laws. Someone breaks into your house when you're home and you shoot them initially, it would be justified.
Yes.
But the subsequent shots were not justified.
No. The first one to the boy.
Yeah,
Okay.
because he got shot 3 times. So it's not like he was shot just
Yeah,
once.
he was shot twice and then he fell down the stairs and then was shot again.
Yeah.
Right?
To die. in the
Now,
head.
my question is, why the hell did she come into that house?
I think what happened
she
was that
already in
he
the-
went in first, and then she heard a shot, but she might have thought it was nothing, and then went downstairs. Maybe it sounded like it dropped, or I don't know. But she did
Yeah.
follow him after. So I feel like maybe she was doing something else and she didn't hear it, or she heard it, but she thought it was he had dropped something, it was a crash or something.
Yeah.
Who knows? The law doesn't permit you to execute someone once a threat is gone. Which
No.
sounds
Yeah, you
reasonable.
don't get to kill someone, but you can defend yourself.
So there's actually a lot of speculation and evidence that Byron set up a trap to catch these cousins.
Okay, because that's what I was thinking. That's
Yeah.
what I was gonna ask. Because now, did he ever state please leave?
No,
I'm gonna shoot you?
no.
Okay.
So what happened was that he had seen them casing his house earlier. So earlier that morning, he moved his truck to make it look like no one was home. And then he sat in the basement
And waited.
and waited for someone to break into his house.
Yeah.
So that's very suspicious.
It is a little suspicious, especially if you're going to have a gun. Now, it's just like, so was everything was recorded?
In his surveillance, like his audio and video recording in his
Man,
surveillance.
that is
So he was sitting at the bottom of the stairs, and his home security recorded 6 hours of audio in a digital recorder. And there's like a lot of things he says during those 6 hours that's gonna be used against him.
I imagine that there is a lot of things. Oh my God, I can't even.
So prior to the break-in, the recorder caught Byron saying, "In your left eye," and "I realize I don't have an appointment, but I'd like to see one of the lawyers here." Before anyone broke in, that's what he was saying to himself.
Oh, he was pumping himself up.
Yeah. And then Haley was shot in the left eye.
Ooh.
Yeah. Following the shooting, some of the following statements were said by Byron. And this is going to sound super rambly.
Her shot in the left eye, was that done when she was on the ground?
Yeah. So he says,
What a
"I'm not a
prick.
bleeding heart liberal. I feel like I was cleaning up a mess. Not like spilled food, not like vomit, not even like diarrhea. The worst mess possible. And I was stuck with it. In some tiny little respect, I was doing my civic duty. If the law enforcement system couldn't handle it, I had to do it. The law
my
system
God.
couldn't handle her, and if it fell into my lap and she dropped her problem in my lap and she threw her own problems in my face, and I had to clean it up." So he's basically like, everything failed me, so that's the reason why I had to kill these people.
Now, did he say that after he shot them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I was
Following the shooting.
thinking if this is before,
I think
he
this-
knows that girl.
Yeah. Well, apparently, because I was reading other articles, he had hired them before with a couple of other people to work, like do yard work. So he did know them previously
Okay.
as people. So it's not. And then I think that's how they also knew that they could rob him. They had things. So they'd robbed him previously, and then now they're just like,
Yeah.
I think that they were on drugs. Yeah.
It also kind of sounds like he may have also been on drugs.
Or he was definitely, he's definitely messed up for sure. Because this was
He's
all,
got some issues.
yeah, this is all audio recording that was caught in his home security. Like he's talking to himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excessively.
So this, as well as the car being moved, and the excessive force used, led to the charges for second-degree murder. But on April 2013, Byron was indicted on 2 counts of first-degree murder because he obviously planned for this. He sat under, he set a trap. He sat in the basement with guns. He had every intention of killing
guns.
them. Yeah,
Guns.
guns. In case the other one jammed, which he was right about. 'Cause it did.
Yeah.
So in some states, such as Florida, has a stand your ground law that allows homeowners to shoot an intruder dead. Mm-hmm. I mean,
You're allowed to shoot them dead in
yes,
Florida?
in Florida. I don't plan on breaking into any houses ever in my life. So, but I mean, it just seems excessive. But I guess like it could be always like, well, they could be coming in to kill me, and that's the reason why they have those laws. But who knows?
I understand having it, but it's also,
Get a pet alligator. No one will mess with you.
I don't know. I just feel like there's circumstances, like, I mean, I don't know. I've never had my home broken into.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had my home broken into, but like not in that sort of way.
Yeah.
It's just like, I feel like there needed to be like a conversation of like, I have a gun, get out of here.
Yeah. Or
I'll shoot you.
or
instead
even like
of
a
just
warning
like,
shot.
not
and
even a warning. I don't even agree with the
not
warning
even
shot.
shooting at them. I mean, like shooting
Yeah.
like like a shot, and then it's like out of here.
Yeah.
And usually someone hears a gunshot, they run.
Get out of my
away.
house. I have
Yeah.
a gun. I'll shoot you, and then shoot the gun.
Like not
to
at them,
scare
but
them
like,
away.
Yeah, that's like a warning shot, like a into the ground or something. At most, I don't own a gun.
I'm also really like, I wish I could watch or see the video, like, because I'm like really confused as to why she didn't, like, she heard 3 gunshots.
Yeah, and then she still
wasn't
walked to
just
the basement.
one.
Who
It's
knows?
3.
So
But, like, you hear 3 gunshots, like, I mean, I guess it's either you're either gonna run to go check on
and
them,
see if your cousin's okay, or you leave.
or you leave.
Yeah. So maybe she was going to see if her cousin was okay.
But, I mean, if he's at the bottom of the stairs and she's at the top of the stairs,
And then he
she's-
shoots her,
Yeah.
and then she falls on the stairs.
Okay, and then
Yeah.
she fell down the stairs.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that is.
So Minnesota has a reasonable person doctrine. If a reasonable person would see if you are in fear of great bodily harm of death, it comes down to what a reasonable person would see in a situation. So Byron was out on a $50,000 bail, which seems crazy to me because he was charged with first-degree murder.
I don't know how much bail, like, what counts as the standard for bail. You know what I mean? Like,
But I mean, he murdered someone, so how did he even get out on bail at all? I don't
because
feel
he's
like,
probably not a flight risk. That's why.
I guess, but
He's poor. He's 65 years old.
I mean, he was
like-
able to post the bail, so he wasn't that poor.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true too.
Yeah. So just
I don't know. Maybe because of his age. It was probably like he's not a flight risk,
yeah.
but he's definitely a danger to
But he's
society.
he's still a murderer.
Yeah.
So,
They let murderers free all the time.
so on April 29th, 2014, Byron was what is it? He was I wrote down count guilty, but it's definitely he
Found
was
guilty.
found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder.
Were you writing this at 2 a.m., Angela?
I was. I'm always writing everything at 2 a.m. The audio recordings were the biggest influence that decided for the jury.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no shit. Because like it doesn't matter what he says. He better have had a really good story.
And
like
Byron thought that the recordings would absolve him. So that's why I think something was wrong with his head. Because you could
Because like think about it, like he's pumping out like I had to do this, like I had to do this. The government made, or like the law
Yeah.
enforcement made me.
Failed me.
Yeah, they failed me. I had to take it into my own hands. That's an old man that's just living by himself, living in his own craziness.
Yep.
That like convinced himself that something else was going on. But I mean, like, it depends on like his situation with those people. Like, it really seemed like he knew that though, like that couple was like those cousins were the ones that were constantly breaking into his
It does
home.
sound like they were the ones who were constantly breaking in, but then I did read in other news articles that he didn't report some of them. So I think he was always planning on murdering them. But Wes Hadelstad, one of the jurors in the case, said about the recording, that was the most damning piece of evidence in my mind. The audio recording of the actual killing and the audio recording of Mr. Smith's interview immediately after his arrest pretty much convinced me that we were dealing with a deranged individual.
Ooh, what was the recording after he got picked up by the police?
Did not find that.
Because
I don't think they
that would
released
be-
it. Yeah.
that'd be interesting.
Or if they did release it, I didn't listen to it. I don't want you to listen to the
Well, yeah,
recordings.
I for the most part I can't really listen to stuff like that because it's just like, oh, that's weird. But it's like I can read the transcripts.
Yeah.
I like to read the transcripts of stuff like that.
Because then it's not, you don't hear like the fear. And
Yeah.
anyways, so the Little Fall community was incredibly divided by the events as they felt Byron's actions were justified and it would have been in a different state.
I'd really like to know what the age demographics are for Little Falls,
Falls.
because I know that my grandparents used to live in Little Falls, which is why I was like,
Yeah?
oh, Little Falls. I know that one. And it's sort of like, it was a lot of old people. I could see how
They
a
would,
lot of
yeah.
old white American men with guns would be very like,
This is
"No,
my property. This is my stuff.
don't come
yeah.
in my home. If you come in my home, I'll shoot you.
Exactly. And that's what you see all the time with any NRA person. Like, if you come into my area, I will shoot and kill you.
But then you have police officers that where they break into someone's home and then killed that person, and then they try to make it look like they were drug addicts.
Even though it's like they definitely weren't.
They definitely
and
weren't.
you overreacted.
You were the one that broke into the wrong house.
Yeah.
And he told you to get out of his house, And you were...
And because they're a police officer. And it becomes like a whole different argument of like, you can't have this conversation, basically.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. So in Minnesota, reasonable force may be used upon or towards the person of another without the other's consent when the following circumstances exist or the actor reasonably believes them to exist. When used by any person in lawful possession of real or personal property and resisting unlawful interference with such property. So basically, it's like you can use reasonable force in certain situations.
Yeah. Well, in a reasonable situation.
In a reasonable situation.
You can use a reasonable amount of force, but you can't shoot someone 18 times without giving them any warning to get out of your house.
How dare you? That's why you own a gun then.
Byron, come on.
Another state states that the intentional taking of life of another is not authorized except when necessary in resisting or preventing an offense which the actor reasonably believes exposes the actor to great bodily harm or death, or preventing the commission of a felony in the actor's place of abode. So he's based, like in some states, it's like, well, they broke into your house.
Yeah, so it was like the main part, not the main part, but was a big part of this murder having to do with the fact that like in one state you can do something, in other states you can do whatever.
Yeah.
And are they trying to push for like their laws to be changed?
They're
in
just saying
Minnesota
that
to
like
match Florida?
they think that he should be free because they think a lot of people in that town really believe that what he did was the right thing to do because they were breaking into his house and they weren't like good kids, they were druggies or whatever. I'm assuming they're druggies because he had stolen drugs, but I'm like, that's not a reason to kill someone.
No, they're 16 and 17?
17 and 18.
17 and 18. They had their whole lives ahead of them.
Yeah,
to
they had
fix themselves.
they had time to fix themselves. They were who knows what kind of situation
they could have got
in.
arrested. They could have done like a couple of weeks in juvie
or anything
or prison, and then been like, hey, you know what? I never want to come back here.
It seems like an incredibly big overreaction to it is like someone invading your personal space and stealing your shit is really awful. I'm not saying it's not, but you shouldn't kill someone for it.
Yes. No.
It's like
I'm not even upset about him like putting the truck and like setting up the trap to like just to catch them in the act.
And then yell at them.
If he was just trying to catch them in the act and not try to kill them.
Even if he just got recording.
He had more than one gun.
If he just had recordings and then he called the cops. And then he had two guns. And the thing is, like, as soon as the first gun, like, jammed.
Where the fuck were the neighbors? Why weren't the neighbors calling the police? That was a lot of gunshots to go off.
I don't know. Like, maybe is like Little Falls like a suburban community, or is there like a lot of space? Maybe there's like a lot of space, and that's the reason why they didn't hear it. Well, it's in the basement too, so maybe it's a little more soundproofed.
I don't know. I've never been. I can't know for sure if I've ever heard a gunshot.
I know.
Like I'm pretty sure I have like a couple of times.
Yeah.
But I'm not really sure.
It's pretty similar to a car backfiring, which is why a lot of people
loud.
tense up. Yeah. So.
But no, that dude. I was with him up until like if it would have been a situation where he was like, I have a gun. Get out of my house. Yeah. Get the fuck out of my place.
Or if he shot them one time because they did still come in, and then he shot them one time and he accidentally killed them after that one shot, it'd be a little bit more like, you know what, that's a shitty thing, but, like he felt like he was threatened. There was these young people and he's older, whatever. Like, I can sort of see it.
He was constantly breaking into his house. Like, but if they didn't have any weapons.
And then he shoots them multiple times to make sure they're dead. Yeah. And then he waits a day to call the police.
No.
It just,
sorry, Byron.
None of it sounds, So
not supporting you.
Byron is currently serving a life prison sentence without parole at the Belle Prairie Township, Morrison County, Minnesota.
Man. May God have mercy on the soul of the prisoner that ever steals his soap.
He doesn't have guns in prison,
No, but you can always make shivs and find other creative ways to kill people in prison.
It just seems so so ridiculous. Like I was like looking for Thanksgiving murders, and I'm like,
so
did not
excessive.
expect that. I thought it was gonna be like a family, like how stressful family situations are, and there was just gonna be like someone poisons the whole family during Thanksgiving. Did not expect
Someone kills someone over the
Turkey.
spilled
I
cranberry
know.
sauce or something like
on their
that.
dress, and then just stab someone with like those turkey saw things. But like I thought it was gonna be something like that. Not that. Did not expect that for a
that
Thanksgiving
is
murder.
that's excessive.
Just took a
That's
different
out there.
turn. But yeah, like I said, there was discussion about it, but
Well,
So,
for the
yeah.
record,
don't murder people.
don't murder people. If someone is coming into your house and they're trying to like steal your shit, you better make sure you say. It doesn't even matter if you don't have a gun.
I
You
have
better
a gun.
you better say, I have a gun. Get out, or I'll kill you.
Yeah,
Or I'll
unless
shoot you.
like they're coming
Not kill
in.
you. I'll shoot you.
Unless they're coming in with like machine guns and they're not the cops, then yeah. But even
That is.
if they're like if you can see that they're very heavily armed, then you can do whatever the hell you need to do to get the hell out of the situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's
but that only
super-
happens in TV shows and movies, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't see
media
that
kind of
happening.
ruins everything for me.
Yeah, I think like that's like it was definitely an overreaction. Don't do it.
It was a planned overreaction.
Yeah, and that's why
And
it
he
was
wa-
first
he,
degree
like, he
murder
was-
and
he
not
was-
manslaughter, which is what it would have been if he had accidentally killed them.
Well, that was interesting. I'm glad that I learned.
About this Thanksgiving murder, because that's what you want to talk about on Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Murders.
Thanksgiving murders. Don't listen, guys. When you're done eating your turkey and you're all full from your turkey, don't go out and break into anybody's homes.
Don't break into anyone's home
Yeah.
and don't kill anyone this holiday season,
Yeah,
hopefully.
try not to kill anyone this holiday season.
Yeah.
And if you guys have any murders that you'd like to share with us or like for us to talk about, doesn't even have to be murders, can be any kind of death of any sort. You can email us at peoplekeepdying@gmail.com, and you can find
On
us
all social media, not all social media platforms, on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. And we also have our podcast available on Spotify and Stitcher and YouTube and iTunes. And you're listening to something somehow. So
Google,
whatever you're listening to, this
across
CastBox.
all your podcast devices.
Yes. And yeah, have a great holiday, and hope we get to, I hope you get to listen to us next week because you won't be dead.
Don't